So I want to introduce, we have two esteemed panelists. Their names are behind us on the screen, but just in case, Christine D. With IBM, who actually has an interesting telecom background yourself. I saw Western Wireless, I saw T-Mobile. I've got questions about John Stanton, so we'll get there. So, and then Daniel Zhao, who I stood with last year at this time, talking about RCS, but with China Mobile. So with that, what I'd like to do is start with panelist introductions, just a little bit about the work you're doing, and then work you're doing specific to the theme of the day, which is AI. So, Christine.
Let me get this chair right first.
Okay.
Are we on? Okay, there we go.
You're on.
I'm on. So I'm Christine D. I'm IBM's Global Solution Executive for Telecom, Media, and Entertainment. I specialize in Watson and analytics, and I'm happy to take any questions about John Stanton, one of my favorite guys on the planet.
Okay, very good. So for those who don't remember, Western Wireless became part of T-Mobile eventually, right? Is that?
Western Wireless
launched
VoiceStream, which was then bought by Deutsche Telekom and became T-Mobile. Yes. Okay,
because I was blending it with, for some reason I thought part of it ended up with Altel, which ended up with Verizon.
Western Wireless on the cellular side went Altel, then Verizon, but yeah.
I can't keep up.
It's okay.
Yeah, very good. And then Daniel.
Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Zhao. I'm with a small team called China Mobile Technology located in Milpitas. So we are here since late 2008. For those who don't know, we work with a lot of startups as well as some established companies here to bring the innovations to China Mobile, some from the technology, product, and as well as some new business cases. So for those of you who are interested to learn how to work with China Mobile, or you have exciting products, please feel free to come to me. And my responsibility is mostly looking for the new technologies, and AI is definitely the hottest topic this year, so I'm excited on this panel.
And Daniel, you've been a Telecom Council member as a representative of China Mobile for how many years? I mean,
5 years.
For a while, yeah. So anyway, he's the man as it comes to approaching China Mobile. So you have an offering. By all means, please find Daniel. So, Christine, you preempted one of my questions, which was to say, does AI from IBM inherently mean Watson? And so let's start there.
Thank you. That's a great place to start. So. AI, when we think about it, generally we're thinking about artificial intelligence, and that's certainly part of what we're doing with Watson. Typically, the way that we think about AI and Watson, we're thinking about augmented intelligence. And so there's a difference there. Our cognitive systems are able to understand at scale, reason with purpose, and never stop learning based on feedback. And what that looks like is for understanding, we're talking about understanding natural language, not just ingesting structured, unstructured data, but really being able to interpret and understand manuals and journals, natural language types of things, and industry-specific language as well. And so Watson can read 800 million pages per second. We had one client that ingested 80 million documents to begin with, and then ingests 30,000 documents every day since then. So that's the understanding part. The reasoning part is this ability to assign a confidence to that information, be able to go out and look at that corpus of information and come back with an answer. I'm 90% confident, or I'm 65% confident, and here's the evidence that helps me establish that. And then the learning. This is not a programmed, scripted interface. This is a tool that I can even hardly call Watson a tool, but this is about an interaction and a learning process, not programmed responses, not scripts. And so when we talk about AI, we do see AI show up. Olli, it's OLLI, is the self-driving bus in Washington, D.C., powered by Watson. So there's natural language interaction there. Show me a great steakhouse, show me a great place to, show me where Ford's Theater, whatever, is. A concierge in a hotel, and of course in customer care, we see Watson Virtual Agent being able to take customer care calls. But what we're really after with augmented intelligence is accelerating, augmenting, and scaling expertise. And so much more about advising decisions and planning and higher level functioning. And so that's Watson's work.
So I have to say, just from a marketing and consumer palatability perspective, calling it augmented intelligence is much more kind of shiny happy than artificial intelligence.
Right.
It removes the Borg veneer.
We're really talking about a human-machine collaboration, a partnership, much more than, you know, the bots are coming or will take over. Yeah. Right.
Interesting. So, Daniel, so I'm going to pick up on the augmented intelligence kind of meme. And what are you trying to augment at China Mobile? And she said something very interesting about there's a teaching process where there are data sets that you need to ingest to get going. To the extent you can speak about what sort of data sets are you looking for, or what data sets might you have that you're trying to utilize?
So speaking of China Mobile, we have about 837 million subscribers, mobile subscribers, and we also have right now 65 million broadband subscribers. So I think that accounts for lots of data. I think even for the customer service part, like Christine said, we have more than 30,000 manual customer service people, and I think most of them are not working very efficiently. And I think so that's why we need a lot of machine intelligence help. One thing, the way we look at the AI is that we think this is actually a new paradigm of computing. It actually comes with three different forces. One is availability of the massive big data, which we had some advantage, and we have a lot of accumulation over the years. The other one is the advance of algorithm, and also availability of the cheap computation, of course, massive parallel computation. So that actually makes, you know, you can read billions of data in a few seconds. So that's actually the power of AI. And I think the customer service is just only a small part. We have a lot of network intelligence. We have actually China Mobile is moving toward the digital transformation. So we actually had a digital media business, which is like Amazon's digital media business. We have I think the largest China Mobile Chinese books, online books in China, and we also have probably the largest Chinese music labels in China as well. And we have videos, games, and all of them requires a lot of intelligence to how to tailor the needs to the consumer. And I think we just started.
Very cool. So. In our call, you mentioned something interesting. So we were talking about sort of the size of China Mobile and how any finger on a scale will move that scale a lot, which is probably very exciting to companies like IBM. But you mentioned there's kind of regionality in the network, Daniel. So there are certain areas that are either not independent but may operate differently. And I was wondering if there are kind of areas or regionalities, cities that are more kind of pioneers as it goes to AI, or at least trialing AI, for example.
Yes, so for those of you who are not familiar with China Mobile, even we are a big company, we actually most of the business operating at the provincial level. So some of the provinces like Shanghai, Guangdong, and Beijing, and Jiangsu, and Zhejiang, they are more advanced. They are willing to take a lot of new technology and take new risks. Actually, they offer more advanced services as well. So those are I think media business I mentioned, like game business is actually located in Jiangsu, and the book business is located in Zhejiang, and the video business is in Shanghai. So just to give you an example. So I think for those of you who have compelling products, it's good chance you can start with some provincial level, engage with those provinces first, and do the trial. And if this trial is successful, it's easier to become more like a countrywide adoption.
So it's 840 million, but it's subdivided into chunks of 50 million or 60 million or so, which unto themselves would still be very appealing. But right. So I have a question for Christine, which is kind of metrics for success. So you sign a telco agreement, maybe it's for customer service, maybe it's for something else. What is the quantifiable goal? For example, is it revenue lift? Is it margin savings? Is it customer churn reduced? Or do you have specific kind of end KPIs that a customer might be targeting?
It's a good question and a tricky one, because what we like to frame our conversations in terms of customer experience, right? Very difficult to quantify. So when we look at our use cases for care, for example, care transformation, we're not just talking about replacing customer care reps or call takeout or cost takeout or call deflection. What we want to talk about is providing subscribers with a luxurious experience while also saving, in some cases, as many as $500 million a year with services that are analytics driven, where we can preempt a customer call or address an issue with a customer before they're unhappy, kind of interact with them in many different ways. Virtual agent is one way, but other different types of interfaces as well. For network operations, again, what we're serving is the issue of a kind of a collapse in knowledge and expertise. We see where it's siloed and isolated, or where people can't even just find the person that they need to hire. I've talked with CTOs, very large carriers, who say, I can't even hire an optimization engineer because people don't have that expertise. And so we're satisfying those needs. And then again, with content recommendation, it's really about being able to give a subscriber or a viewer a type of experience that they will truly love, and in an immediate way be able to discover very quickly programming that they will become addicted to or will enjoy immensely, based on their Watson recommendations. So very focused on customer experience, and different carriers measure that with different KPIs, honestly. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is in the customer service example, there's maybe an implication, which I should confirm, but it would sound as though at the starting point you have a reference state for sentiment, and then maybe at 6 months you have a state for sentiment, 12 months, and you're able to quantify the sentiment that customers were expressing during calls. Is that kind of on track as far as?
Well, that's during calls, right? Well, you want less calls, fewer calls, right?
Right. Yes.
So you want fewer calls, and so you're not looking for sentiment, but in that way. But maybe you can take a look at average handle time, for example, with Watson Advisor. So we have a situation where Watson advises during the phone call, so that a customer care rep isn't going between the 47 different screens that it requires to address an issue. Watson is able to provide relevant information about the customer's situation, about previous questions that they've asked, about what next relevant questions can help the rep troubleshoot a situation, and all the relevant information, even weather, Yeah.
I mean, this sounds very operationally focused then. This is not kind of loose. This is very, in a way, quantifiable goals or measurement that you should be able to achieve at the end of it. So even if I'm
right, in terms of use cases,
right,
absolutely,
right,
yes,
okay.
Yeah, and in terms of higher level thinking, no, you can be quite loose, yeah.
Daniel, I know this time last year, but also during our prep call, you were talking about messaging.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see if you could share anything about AI as it's applied towards messaging, which I know is a subject near and dear to you.
Yeah, so for the messaging part, I think last year I was talking about we are going to promoting our rich communication suite, which is the next generation of carrier-based messaging. I think the industry has a lot of development, including like Google acquired Jibe and some other movements around. So from my point of view, I think China Mobile still, working on this messaging. I believe there's some there's some holdback in terms of rollout. I believe we plan to roll out probably earlier this year, but we probably end up roll out something later this year. And mostly coming from the OEMs, they don't really, they have some pushbacks and some delayed push the schedule. But we are still thinking there's a place a carrier can play in the messaging. Even WeChat, like in China, is more like overwhelming and it's more massive in terms of its capabilities. But we think we are still trying to find some angle that really retain this market. And in terms of AI, I think AI can play a lot in the messaging. I think just to come back to the customer service, the problem isn't just handle a phone call. There's a few actually even for the different type of product, we have different level of service. So you can engage the customer with like a digital media content, and you can also interactive with the customer with some of the like a gaming experience. All those kind of things can fall into the AI category.
So one more question for Christine, and then I want to open up questions to folks out here. You have cases where the telco is your customer, but also cases where the telco is the channel, in a way, or at least one that I'm aware of. So I wonder if you could speak to that. Are there cases where carriers are actually reselling Watson in a way?
Well, I'm sure you're familiar with the SoftBank situation in Japan. Yeah, okay. So about a year or so ago, I mean, maybe even 2 years ago, we signed on with SoftBank to do Watson services. And so Watson Watson does help with operational efficiencies, of course, within SoftBank, but is primarily used as something that SoftBank sells to their clients and subscribers. And so you'll see robotics in the home, where the Watson-enabled robot will interact with an elderly person, for example, be able to provide information, or in some cases, more recently, we're doing some stuff in the U.S. where Watson powers robots that interact with PTSD sufferers and is able to detect mood and intervene with a song or some kind of cute thing to be helpful. A number of different ways that the telcos are doing that. I will say that we've got a few global telcos that are very specifically building out Watson apps to make available to their business clients. So for their B2B organization, the Watson Open Platform, using those APIs, enabling those from their own cloud foundries, has been key for that success.
Thank you. Well, we're coming on 2 minutes, so I want to pause for a second. I see one hand. First up. All right, we'll go with this gentleman here. He was first. Then Rakesh, and then I see a gentleman in a white shirt with a Starbucks coffee. I know that describes a few people, who had his hand up tentatively. So we'll get to him next.
Hi, Christine. I had a question about Watson Edge, and wanted to understand, where that is. IBM Watson Edge, specifically around edge analytics, and what's the roadmap for that, and what sort of use cases you are focusing on that. I mean, that's, I guess, is another variation of how Watson can be used, right?
I'm sorry, Watson Edge, or you're talking about Watson applied to Edge Analytics?
Edge Analytics.
Okay, yeah. So the way that we see Watson fitting with Edge Analytics is, we've got the sensors, right, and video and so on, that then performs. Wow.
Just testing.
I feel clear. So there's the sensor data, or sensors that then supply the data that becomes information and so on. Watson is able to interpret at a high speed what's happening, what it means to have these data points. So Watson itself does not so much do the analytics, but Watson can receive analytics and place it and make meaning of it. One of the things that we've got with Watson Explorer is it will set alerts, so questions that are frequently asked, it'll give proactive alerts. So, you know, what's my worst performing node today? You'll get that in the morning, but there's nothing Watson specific on the edge itself. Those are still analytics channels.
All right.
Does that make sense? Is that okay?
Yes.
We can
Okay.
follow up later. Sorry.
I think Rakesh, and then there was a gentleman here. So.
I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the buzz around bots, whether it's chatbots or bots as applicable in other embedded applications, whether it's in messaging or customer service and so on. And maybe you can talk about it in the context of the AI, and maybe a subset of that, but given that it's very focused in a specific area, can you talk a little bit about that and how that fits in?
Anyone want to step up and take that?
Okay.
It's all chatbots these days.
Yeah, chatbots, I think in the beginning, I think if you can confine the context, chatbots can be a very useful tool to really automate the customer experience, I think. But I think in terms of the more broadly, like if you apply onto a more like just robots, I think it will be still at a very early stage. I didn't see very you know, a very useful chatbot, you know, they can do everything. But in a certain field, I believe I can see pretty good.
And from the IBM perspective, we do have the Watson a conversation bot that's available on Bluemix. It's an API. Please do check that out. But one of my favorite stories is out of Florida. There's a university professor went out to Bluemix, just the open platform, signed up for a 30-day free trial or whatever, and loaded his syllabus and other supporting material into Watson, and offered his students an interaction with his TA for the whole year. And they did not know that they were interacting with Watson until the end of the year when he told him that. And he did it all on his own. IBM did not help him. That's how accessible this platform is.
I want to add one more, actually. Actually, one thing I personally feel is not very natural when you talk with like machine voice. So one thing I think AI is helping. Currently, Google released the WaveNet. I think that's very promising. So you can actually simulate your grandma's voice sometime, and you can really hear no difference. If that can happen, I'm more optimistic about a chatbot.
That's freaky.
So there was a question here at the left table, this gentleman who's really leaning into his ThinkPad now. No, we're moving on. All right, we're 3 minutes over, so one more question before we need to wrap up this panel, unfortunately. Silence meaning assent. I'm going to say thank you to our panelists for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.